And we're live. We're here with the Through Her Eyes filmmakers, most of them. Some are in different time zones, and we will talk to them later. But here we have Katerina, Erica, Maya, and Huma. And if you can just go around and explain, number one, identify which film and what you did on that film. And we'll start with Katerina.
I'm Katerina. I played Lena in She Keeps Me.
Love it.
I'm the...
Okay.
Oh my God.
That's okay.
Hi, I'm Erica. I'm the writer and
Is anyone having trouble hearing Erica? Yeah. It's okay. Okay, for this one question, I'm going to answer it for you. This is Erica. She's the director of She Keeps Me, and she's going through some laggy Wi-Fi right now, clearly. Maya?
Hi, so my name is Maya. I'm the director, writer, and cinematographer for Night Visit.
Huma?
I'm Homa, and I'm the writer, director, producer, and editor for Enough Said.
Love it. Okay, so I guess our first question will be for Eric and Katerina. Your film is dealing with a pretty sensitive subject matter. It's a subject matter that probably touches a lot of lives. How do you walk the line between exposition and exploitation? And how consciously do you walk that line? We cannot hear you. We can't hear Erica.
Okay. I'm having some...
Do you want to maybe move closer to your router, if that's possible? We can start with Katerina, who is muted.
No, that's a very good question. I mean, I worked alongside Erica pretty closely on this project from the beginning, and right from the get-go, it was an extremely personal story to Erica, and she's also the writer of She Keeps Me, and it was, I would say, it was equally personal for me as well. So I think that was a way in which we kept it very honest and authentic to our own experience, and not playing into any stereotypes, but also understanding that those exist. And I think we did our best to stay away from that. But I also think it's through the lens of the familial ties and being an Italian-Canadian family, kept it very authentic and personal to Erica and myself. So, and playing Lena, I was, very, very conscious about getting to the truth of her triggers. And so, although I understood her mental illness at a certain level, I felt like I wanted, go even beyond that to just the simplicity of why she feels the way she feels. And if I came at it from that, it was going to be from an authentic emotional place.
That's beautiful. Erica is frozen or asleep. We cannot tell, but I think her screen is frozen right now. So we'll just move over to Maya here. Can you explain what is the central? Because I have my own interpretation as someone who really admired Night Visit and just loved this film. What was the central question at the heart of what you were? What were you questioning really with this film? Was the big question?
First of all, thank you very much. and I'm really glad to be here. And thank you for the compliments for the film. I think I wanted to question the idea of what is a victim, and maybe a little bit make it difficult for ourselves as for me as a writer, and also for the audience. Um, I wanted to make it more complex. I wanted it to be that you would either, not either, but also feel compassionate for the guy that was actually having a difficulty with himself, you know, about a person that might not know how to ask for intimacy and just like takes it without asking. And of course, for the heroine that was in a situation where she thought she understood the situation and she thought she was really in control. And then when she kind of looks back, she realized that she didn't understand anything.
Mm.
But I didn't want her to feel like she was weak or to be like hateful for herself. And I thought that the situation brings something that might be a little bit shaky for everyone, also for the viewer and also for them. So I wanted to challenge that question of what is a victim and what do we tell ourselves that's going on and what
Mhm.
is actually happening in our relationship to this reality.
I think it's beautiful how you've walked this line. I think you raise a lot of empathy for both characters, right? Even if we can argue that one is in the wrong, in a moral sense, the wrong. I think it's just so beautiful that you've managed to create empathy for someone that we should maybe be disgusted by or not like. It's a very deeply human film. And I think I want to ask you more about loneliness as a theme later. Huma, you're currently based in the States
Yeah.
and you're from India.
Yes.
And we were talking earlier about how the most interesting storytellers live on the intersections of identity and culture. So
Mhm.
how has living in both countries helped to elevate you and shape your perspective as a storyteller?
I moved here about 5 or 6 years ago, and I think moving here definitely helped me feel safer, like leaning into my identity, talking about my experiences. It wasn't the case back home because I feel like, you know, even like even in India, like I am a minority, so occupying that position there, it kind of silences you in a lot of ways.
Hmm.
So, you know, I think there is room here to voice your opinions, to speak, and to not be judged. So I think that's definitely something that's different for me. Coming here, I was able to write about my experiences without fear. Yeah.
Fear of societal ridicule.
Yeah, or I mean, yeah, fear of society, fear of consequences. Is this film going to work? Are people going to like it? Is this offensive to them? Like, you know, it's even if we do see like films about women in mainstream India, like Bollywood and stuff, like you have films that kind of show women taking on feminist films that show like women taking on a more masculine role.
Mm.
And so other forms of femininity aren't really celebrated in cinema yet. And that's something that, maybe I don't know if I would have had the opportunity or the space to have cultivated that thought, that the script, you know.
Yeah, our surroundings certainly shape our perspectives in a lot of ways. The people that we're around and the city that we're around can inspire different ideas. And I think one of the things I really admire about all of your films is really a comment on all of your films is the active protagonist. The female active protagonist. And sometimes, I've had conversations with this about male directors who have female leads, And to me, at least, it's not always the case, because there are certain male directors who have this rare ability to consult with or understand or empathize that female perspective, but it's always a little bit different when a woman directs it. And it's clear in your films that these characters, they're not masculine in any way. They're purely feminine, but they're completely active in their pursuit of what they're looking for. We've lost Erica again. She's our ghost. Okay, so Katerina, and perhaps you can both speak on this a little bit. Now, I happen to have, so Erica, fun fact, and I think I mentioned this to you in a previous email, that you and I stood on stage together in 2020 because we were both selected to a short film festival here, and I thoroughly enjoyed your film, Tampon. And then you know, when She Keeps Me came on, I was like, why does that face look so familiar? And of course, it's because it's the same actress from Tampon, Katerina, that you've used. So I'm curious, earlier we were talking with some directors about working relationships and cinematic language, tone, goals, and how when you find people that you want to work with, you should probably find a way to keep working with them. So compare and contrast the first time you worked together. I don't know if Tampon was your first film together, but the first film that I've heard from you two together versus your second, and how your working relationship changed.
Hi, can everyone hear me now?
Yes. And we're so happy. Yes.
Yes. Okay. I'm really sorry about that.
No problem.
So Katerina and I, yeah, Tampon was the first film that we made together. And She Keeps Me is not the last film. Like, we've made more films after She Keeps Me. And I'm not going to speak for Katerina, but I feel so Katerina's a very intuitive actor. And she's like very like multifaceted creator. On She Keeps Me, even though Katerina like played the lead, she also had like, for me, like a very like integral part of creating the film. Like, we shot the whole film at her parents', like in her childhood home. And Katerina also like worked a lot with Rachel Dagenet, who played the other lead. I bounced ideas off of Katerina like throughout the entire process. So like Katerina very much for me has been like a very like key player in my creative process. And what I would say about like working with the same person repeatedly is that for me, the process, just because you have a shorthand and you know each other so well, that working with Katerina over the span of like a few years, the process just became so much more like magic. Like, it just kind of just like falls together a lot quicker. And yeah, you just develop like a very special relationship.
That's beautiful. I don't know if we're gonna have a chance to ADR your Q&A, but I think you cut out a little bit there, and got a little bit of weird. Did anyone else hear that, or is that just me hearing that? Everyone else heard that too. Okay, that's okay, but it's beautiful. Okay, so we're gonna go to Huma again. You made a very obviously conscious decision here with your cinematography in this film, to not show something. Are you able to talk about that?
Yeah, so that wasn't something that I decided in the scripting stage. It is something that I actually decided on the first day of the shoot. So when we were filming, I kind of, so I come from a documentary background. So I also like to direct, like, according to, the energy of the scene and how the actors are, taking to the script and how they're performing it. Oops, we lost her. Yeah, so when we were shooting on the first day, I kind of wanted to show that, this is her film, this is the protagonist's film more than anything else. And he kind of exists right now in the periphery of her life, right? He isn't really somebody that she connects to. So I wanted to show him as that as well.
No, that's it's an interesting choice to just. But given that you made that decision on the first day, how do you communicate that to the actor, who's now suddenly kind of a little less part of the film than he thought he would be?
Well, I mean, I did, like take him aside and explain to him that that he is aiding her story, right? So
Yeah,
that takes precedence always. Yeah.
over the vanity of being on screen. I get it. We have some questions popping up, and we'll pull up the questions on the screen after. My as someone who's directed and DP'd before, it's really difficult, obviously, but also there's a simplicity to that as well. It's a catch-22. On the one hand, you tackle one more job that's very difficult. On the other hand, there's a cohesion between the one who is directing and the one who's the director of cinematography. And I think it's interesting. So talk about the decision to do that, because obviously, like, it's an awesome film. I'm sure you could have found someone to do it, but why were you the right cinematographer for your film?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I went back and shot in places where I grew up in, and I
Mm-hmm.
felt like it was so personal and so specific. And I thought that for this film specifically, I thought that I might have a specific eye that might be appropriate for this project. And I think, same as you said, there was something good that a lot of the film is shot on the shoulder. So having that freedom of just like having a conversation with myself in my head, just like talking to the two people at the same time, it was also it was a benefit. And I had my two best friends sitting on the monitor as
Mm-hmm.
a script manager and the editor, and they were kind of making sure that I also technically got everything I wanted, and also just had this extra eye on the directing and on the acting and everything that I needed to have from them. So I could just like after a take look back and like see their face and kind of get a feedback. And I think I wouldn't have done it without their that safety. Um, but I'm glad I did it for this project. I think it was kind of it was right.
I agree. I think you're right too. It's incredible. And here, someone else agrees as well. Night Visit was incredible.
Thank you, Ryan.
Um, um, okay, we have a question for Huma from the audience here. For Huma, what is the fear of the husband to let his wife go outside even with him?
Yeah. So it's kind of culturally understood that, the woman stays at home and it's the man who goes outside and occupies, like, public space. But women are more tied to, like, the domestic life. And it's
Mhm.
also a matter for the husband of her being seen. Like, you don't want your wife to be seen because you're kind of seeing her as there's a sense of ownership there. So, you decide where she goes and what she does and who sees her. So it's all part of that. It's part of control.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess to uh, to give anyone who's watching this who's not directly coming off the screening, to give a little bit of a synopsis, can you talk a little bit about the sort of plot of your film?
Yeah. So it's the story of a housewife who's kind of disillusioned with, how mundane her domestic life is. And she decides to, when there is an event that kind of changes everything for her, and she decides to take this little window of opportunity to act on her impulses and, you know explore her inner desires, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Um, thank you for that. Yeah, no, I think that provides a little bit of perspective here. Here, I guess this question is for Erica, if she can hear us. She keeps me the pool scene. How did you storyboard that? Was it storyboarded? I remember that scene like vividly. Um,
Hey guys, I know you can't see me for whatever reason. I don't know what is happening, but can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, I am so sorry about this. I'm in LA. There should be no excuse for this crappy reception. So the pool scene for She Keeps Me was actually we worked with stunt coordinators for the scene, and we really worked really hard at choreographing that so that everyone kind of felt comfortable, and but it also felt and looked very realistic.
Hmm.
Actually, I don't know if Katerina remembers this, probably she does, but we had choreographed it a different way where everybody was supposed to kind of be in on the drowning, but last second we decided to change that because it felt actually a bit too aggressive for the film, and it didn't really have the same impact as having it just be the two sisters involved in that climax. And so on the day, we changed our minds and we
Hmm.
re-choreographed it. And again, it was just like a big collaborative effort. So that's that.
That's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting that I'm curious. I know that Huma comes from a documentary background. Maya, do you have some documentary in your background?
I've done 2 documentaries in school and 1 fiction. So yeah, I guess I do. But intuitively, I have I think for this period more compassion for fiction. I really like writing, script writing, and working with actors.
Hmm. So the
So
question that I really had for you was about loneliness, right? And in the beginning, and perhaps just to contextualize this for anyone who may have, maybe watches this like a month from now and maybe doesn't get to watch Night Visit, but just maybe wants to understand it a little bit better. Can you talk about the synopsis of your film?
yeah. So it's about Rudi, which is a young woman living in a faraway small village, actually, where nothing really exciting ever happens.
Mhm.
And I think she's a little bit bored and a little bit kind of looking for experiences. And one night, the guard, like the security guard, walks into her house in the night, and because he heard this noise, and he kind of came to check out everything was okay. And they have this spontaneous romantic night together, which is kind of awkward, but also they have this kind of connection. And later on in the night, it turns out that the same guy is kind of has this mental kind of issue. And apparently, he walked into a couple of girls her age in the night and kind of peeked on them while they were sleeping. And this whole situation shakes up the whole community. And they're trying as adults to help these ladies deal with the situation. And the heroine, finds herself very confused because she's the only one that had a different experience than her friends. And
Mhm.
later on, she wants to confront him and check, and I think for herself first, if something really happened between them, if it was really a connection that was emotional, and because she felt it, and I think we all felt it in a sense. And he kind of doesn't really give her the response that she wanted to hear. And she's very upset afterwards. And I think it's a confusion for her trying to deal with this um, gap between the way she really felt and the way that reality happened.
Mhm.
And she's first of all confronting him to realize how much she was aware and conscious and really active in the situation, or how much was she missing the whole point.
Mhm.
Yeah, something like that. It's not a whole synopsis. Like, actually, I told the whole film. So
Um, Yeah. Okay. We got Erica back here. Sorry about that. Yeah. So I guess the question that I wanted to ask you was really about loneliness in this film as a central subject, and I think it's very easy to understand, perhaps, that the young man is desperate or lonely, but I think in a weird way this is a strange love story between two lonely people who connect for a moment. So talk about where this curiosity to explore loneliness comes from.
yeah. Thank you. I like your reading of the film. I think it has a lonely element into it. I think When you grow up in a place where it's so small and you feel like maybe you want more from life, or you want to experience more things, or you want to get to know more people, it's easy to feel like alienated. Um, and when you grow up with the same people all the time, it's very hard also to express yourself and to change.
Mhm.
And I think for both the characters, they find this opportunity to, or one night when they kind of put themselves out there,
Mm.
and yeah, they connect for a moment, and then it's just like a huge separation between them, which I think is even it's painful for both of them. But yeah, for one moment, I think they get a really close, intimate, or kind of a good experience.
Yeah, we talked about this in a previous Q&A about Maslow's hierarchy of needs and a fundamental misreading of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, because most people just look at the top and they take the bottom for granted. But the bottom contains everything upon which the top is built. The best way to understand this is you cannot focus or wonder about self-actualization or prioritize self-actualization when you don't have food. And so I think somewhere in the human Maslow's are that need is a need for connection.
Yeah.
A need to feel connected to somebody else, to feel alive. And I think that your two characters sort of find that, and then there's a sort of subversion there in which we are now feeling guilty for rooting for either, for that union to happen. So it's a very interesting film. There is a question here. Now that we're on you, might as well just get this question out. So, how did you cast Ruthie in the process of casting her? She's a fantastic actress. So, congrats on that.
Thank you. She's wonderful, and she's also like really upcoming, also in Israel, and also she was main actress in a film in the Berlinale this year. So I think she's getting more attention, and I'm really happy for that. It was actually pretty basic. I had a casting director, Ben, and he was wonderful. And because there are so many women in that age that are actresses, so we saw many.
Mhm.
And then from that part, it was kind of intuition, because she had this something that I really loved, and it's something in her energy that she's, on one sense, she's very active and she's sensual and she's kind of the sexy, and in the other hand, there is something about her that's still naive and still very romantic. And I felt that she can bring this thing into the character, that she's like reading into the situation, something that you would want to see.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, she was holding this balance, wonderful. Also in her personal, her personal life, she has this in her, this energy.
Mhm. Thank you for that. Yeah, no, I think she's fantastic. And very soon after, sometimes pen dance is such a cool thing for us to discover actors, because it's not always like in short films, actors don't usually blow up. They don't become like this huge thing in short films. It's usually, through features and through recognition at international film festivals. But sometimes you just see someone, you're like, I'm going to see this person everywhere in 2 years. I just know it. Like, it's incredible. And she's incredible. Like, she's a very, very great actress. We have some questions for here. This is Erica here. Let's see, there's more comments. Oh gosh. Well, one, let's get this out of the way here. All right. That's funny. I love that. Thank you. Thank you for that comment. There's another comment for here we go. She keeps me, the pool scene. Oh, nope, already got that. Sorry. Here we go. How do you do you have another project lined up? Excited to see what's next for you and Huma and Maya. So I guess this is for everybody. I guess what's next. Do you mind if we just remind me after? Just, I feel like this is a concluding type of question. There is another question for She Keeps Me, selfish things. For She Keeps Me, Katerina, what do you say was the most difficult scene?
That's a very good question. I would say the last scene, actually, when Alessandra comes into the bedroom and Lena's sitting there with her guilt of what she's done. Yeah, I think that it was just very emotionally charged, and I wanted to give it the adequate life and love that it deserved, because I mean, that's the flip side of Lena. Like, one thing that was so great about playing her is she's so impulsive and she doesn't have a filter and she just kind of reacts. But in that scene, she had to sit in her consequences, and very personal. And it was a difficult scene. I think it was the last one we shot too, but I really enjoyed it. And yeah, happy with how it turned out.
Okay, that answers that. Let's see, more questions. Just to anybody who's listening right now, if you have more questions, if you have a question for Huma, for Maya, for Erica, or for Katerina, please write it in, and if it's a relevant question, we will obviously bring it on screen. Yeah, my next question is really for Huma, and it comes down to number one is your casting. So your casting of this actress who doesn't say very much. It's very quiet, and we're supposed to be pulled into her world somehow. How are you approaching this in the casting process of finding an actress whom you're not going to give lines to, really, to draw her in and to get the audience behind her and into her world?
So I've worked with Shreya, who's the actress, for about 2 years before I made this film, and most of my films up until this point have been with minimal dialogue, and I don't know why that happened, but it's just sort of how I have been writing, and I think maybe on some level it has to do with you know how women are just afraid to speak, and not being able to speak, or not having found your voice, or only speaking when being spoken to. So I think that a lot of that probably stems from that as well. And when I was casting her, so she has worked with me on a lot of assignments during film school, and all of them have been silent. In fact, this was the film which actually had a few dialogues for her. Everything else she's done with me has had no dialogues. So I guess she was already in that space with me.
Mm-hmm.
And of course she's not blank when those scenes are happening. Like she's also told me that she likes to get like some kind of cue from me about how she needs to react, what she's thinking about. And obviously she's also projecting some of what she feels about the character onto that. So yeah, I think that's how she found her relationship to Mariam.
Yeah. There was a. Did any of you watch Sweet Disaster yet with Laura Lemus,
Not yet.
the director? She had a Q&A after the screening in which she was talking about it being her directorial debut, and it's such a remarkable directorial debut, a feature debut. And I asked her, if there was any advice that she can give herself 3 years ago, what would it be? And she said something to the vein of trust yourself and stop playing small. Because and she mentioned this thing about how, as a woman, that through her conditioning as a child and growing up, that she had always learned to shrink into spaces and to corner herself into boxes. And then she said, like, sometimes I would have an idea, but then I wouldn't say it. I would have an opportunity, but I wouldn't take it because something inside of me said, no, wait more. And she was like, almost like she just said, just do it. That was her takeaway. So to extend that question now to you, what is your biggest lesson that you've taken from this film? Yeah, Huma, we can start with Huma, and then we move on to Maya, and then Erica, and then Katerina.
I think the biggest lesson for me from this film was to kind of let go, because I'm kind of I was very caught up. Like, I was just coming out of film school, so I was very caught up on making like the best film, having the most experienced crew, the best people I can get my hands on, and just making this perfect first film. So I think what I learned through the process of making this film was to just kind of let the story guide me instead of the other way around. So a lot of my choices were dictated by the story, And I think it was towards the end of production, I guess in the editing stage, when I kind of realized that, I have to let go of some of that control. Yeah.
I don't know if you filmmakers have a private chat where you've all collectively decided to reference story, the word story, in these Q&As, but the number of times it's come up, and then I'm always reminded looking down at my sweatshirt saying story over everything, because that's really what Pen Dance is about. So thank you for shouting out story. It's very important, obviously, if it's over everything. Maya, lessons?
I think two. One is that going on set with your best friends can be a really good experience, and it can be life-saving. There are moments when you shoot, at least, I don't know, we're shooting now. I shot for 6 days, and I guess I'll be shooting for more in the future. So there are moments when you really, really need to rely on someone, either for feedback or for like emotional support. And I think that was really important for me. And the other was, at least for this script, this was refining the script to like getting it right just before you go shooting, and not expecting that while shooting you will be creative in the script or like figuring out different things. I think most of the planning you do ahead, and then when you come to the set you just do what you planned. I don't know, that was,
How many drafts did you go through?
I worked on it for like over a year. It's short. So yeah.
24 pages?
Yeah.
24 pages for a year.
Yeah, because I felt like obviously there's moments when you get this spontaneous magic, but it's usually, for my, just in my perspective, it was like on specific takes. I didn't expect, and I didn't feel like there were things that I didn't have on the script before. So I felt like most of the planning just like executed it on set.
Yeah, how do I say this without sounding like I'm pandering here? Some people are gonna see 4 women on a screen and they're gonna be like, all right, great, Pen Dance is talking to 4 filmmakers. I don't necessarily think that people who are outside of the festival circuit and outside of the art scene really understand who here is talking, right? For instance, Maya Kaplan, like, we reached out to Jewish organizations here to see if they would help co-promote the film and to help support it. And we have so many contacts in the Toronto Jewish Film Festival, etc. You might be surprised to know that almost every single person we reached out to had heard of your film. And this is like halfway across the world in Toronto. And they were like, oh yeah, absolutely, would love to help her. She's great, know this actor. So it's a different world, that we're living in, and it's very easy to sort of ignore it until it becomes a big thing, right? The greatest example of this, I think, I remember in Pen Dance is 2019, Carlota Pereda, she screened Cardita at Pen Dance midnight. One of the best shorts that I had ever seen. And people were like, yeah, it's a cool short. It's cool short, like it's a short. It's like 15 minutes. I don't know, and you try to convince people like, go check this out. Like it's an unbelievable thing. And, she ends up going to Slam Dance the next year, winning the Agbo Prize from the Rousseau brothers, 25 grand. Then her short gets adapted to a feature. Then it, gets a $2.5 million grant, like to get adapted. Then she goes to Sundance with her feature in 2022. Now her actress, who is the same actress from the short, is is in Vogue magazine, and she's being interviewed by every single person. And the question is, you could have known about this person 2.5 years ago if you just knew what you were looking for. And that's the truth. And I think I feel the same way about Erica. Like I remember watching Tampon and I'm like, wow, like this is interesting. Like this is an interesting filmmaker. You got to follow these people. So yeah, so I'm sorry. Like I just wanted to throw that out there for anyone who's watching and thinking like, okay, you made a 24-minute film. So what? 12-minute film. Talk to me when you make a 95-minute film. It's like, I don't think most people understand how much work goes into a 24-minute film, and remember once when I was starting out as a filmmaker, I went to my mentor and I showed him a draft and he said, what draft is this? And I said, 4th. I was very proud of this, by the way, 4th draft. I thought I'd really done something. And he said, I'll talk to you in 25 drafts from now. That's when I'll read it. When you get to 30, that's when I'll read it. So yes, the decision making, the conscious, the subtext, the layers of all of these films, I think they give so much to think about. Okay, this is from your brother. Okay, Erica, what was the? There's also another question for Erica. I don't know if you want to tackle both of them at the same time. Erica, how do you feel about the final project? Is there anything you would like to change? If so, why? And I don't want to deprive you of your opportunity to also answer the question of what was your biggest takeaway. So if you want to take all three of them, now that we have you and your connection is solid, we will take this opportunity to get all three answers from you.
Hi. Okay. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. I don't want to like make a meal out of this, but okay, lesson that I learned. Probably the biggest lesson happened maybe like now, and it's once the film is screening, and it's just like about if you tell a personal story, it's going to reach people, and that's the most, I think, like satisfying thing for a filmmaker. Is if you feel like you're connecting people with story and bringing them together and making them feel less alone. And so if you're ever in doubt of yourself and you're like, who's going to care? I think like if you really care, other people are really going to care. So that's, I think, one of the biggest, like, wasn't really a lesson, more of like a reminder to myself. And then the inspiration behind the story is
Just pull these questions up one at a time so you can keep track. Yep.
Yeah, that's a great question. The inspiration, without getting into details, is just like being somebody who has like struggled in my life with mental illness, and also has like loved family members with mental illness, and the kind of like gray area or the tension that can exist in that world of like trying to help yourself and trying to help another person, and like how much do you sacrifice and how much do you hold to your chest, and is there a right or a wrong way to navigate that kind of relationship? So that was the inspiration. Would I change anything? I want to say no. Did you guys lose me, or did we just?
No, actually, that was me. I pressed back.
Okay.
For some stupid reason. I pressed back, and now you feel a little less lonely for not being the only person who disappeared off screen once. I join you in your.
You did it on purpose. You're trying to make me feel comfortable.
I wish I could tell you that was true, but I've done it 3 times already. So anyone who's watching all of these in a row, they'll be like, "That's just this thing." You know, he forgets to unmute himself, and he sometimes press backspace. Okay.
Okay, so I don't like. Yes, as a filmmaker, I look at all the things that I feel like I could have done better, but ultimately, no, I wouldn't change anything, because I mean, yeah, I wish I could go back and redo it and make it like a million times better, whatever that means. But I love it. I'm happy with what we made, and I'm really happy that that it's resonating with people. Yeah, I don't feel like I don't want to change anything about it.
That's great. There was a question earlier, which I'm struggling to find as I'm scrolling through, and I'm so scared that as I'm scrolling through, I'm going to press back and then backspace myself out of this again. But I think if I recall it correctly, what's next for you and what's next for the film. And if you can talk about that, if you're in development for other projects, or if this particular film is about to go somewhere, just I guess open mic. We can start with Katerina.
Yeah, Eric and I actually have our 3rd film together in post-production right now. So we shot it kind of like when there was a little break in COVID, but then of course COVID has been difficult. So I think it'll be going into festival soon. Yeah. So that's something to look for. And yeah.
So I want to continue writing about my experiences as a Muslim woman, and that's probably going to form the basis of my next project as well, which will probably be a short. But apart from that, I'm also working on a documentary with a nonprofit right now on survivors of human trafficking in the United States.
And so where would that be available? Or are you working on it as in like it's in pre?
Still in post. Yeah,
It's in post.
yeah,
Okay.
it's in post, yeah.
All right. Well, you know what? Keep in touch with us and let us know when it's out.
Yeah.
Because that's sort of like, I don't know if you follow us on Instagram, you see us like shouting out like filmmakers who screen with us like 4 years later. This is a lifelong thing. You're sort of stuck with us at this point. Maya, what's next for you?
I'm working on 2 scripts right now. One is a feature film, which is roughly also based on the short,
Mhm.
but it also takes place in the city. And I'm co-writing a TV series, which is in development right now. Yeah, that's it.
Amazing. I want to thank every one of you for screening this Through Her Eyes short showcase. It's been 3 years now going strong of Through Her Eyes, and we usually start the festival with Through Her Eyes. This year we decided to start on a really funny note with LMFAO, but this is incredible. It's an incredible short showcase of films, and as much as I love these 3 films, the films for where the directors were unable to attend, they're also incredible films, and we hope that we'll have a chance in the next day or so to connect with those directors as well. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
having
Thank you
Yeah.
for having us.
Thank you so much.